The chilled champagne flute nearly slipped from my fingers as my sister Lauren leaned in and whispered to our mother, "We put her at table 14, it's more flexible for single guests." Their matching smiles flickered briefly in my direction before they turned back to the glittering head table where Lauren's new husband raised a toast. The Monroe family table gleamed under chandelier light, full of familiar faces and carefully arranged place cards, none bearing my name. Instead, the usher guided me past them toward the outer ring near the emergency exit and dessert station, where Great Aunt June hadn't heard a complete sentence since 2011, and my teenage cousin sat with AirPods jammed in both ears. My name is Olivia, I'm 32 and a marketing executive. This is the story of how I stopped being invisible in my own family. The charcoal gray dress I'd chosen carefully, structured, understated, professional, suddenly felt like armor for a battle I hadn't known I was fighting. I smoothed it over my knees as I took the seat beside a wilted centerpiece, wondering if anyone would notice if I simply disappeared. Growing up, I was never the brilliant one, that was Lauren, with her pageant crowns and perfect SAT scores. I wasn't the rebellious one either, that was our cousin Noah, whose teenage smoking habit somehow transformed him into a creative spirit. I was just there. On time. In line. Useful. Low maintenance, my mother used to say, as if it were a compliment. I took care of my own schoolwork, cleaned without being asked, gave up my room when Lauren had strep throat. When Dad lost his job, I offered to skip senior prom and the dress we couldn't afford. He didn't say thank you, just nodded, like it was expected. I learned early that being good didn't earn attention, it just gave people permission to overlook you more confidently. I didn't mind Lauren having the spotlight. Not at first. I clapped at her graduation, took her headshots for college theater, stayed up editing her resume while she cried over breakups. "You're the only one who doesn't make me feel like a failure," she once said, sniffling into a throw pillow. Years later, she told people I probably wasn't coming around much because I was too busy being a career girl in the city. I was actually on leave from work, in the middle of a breakup that left me with 2 drawers of clothes in garbage bags and a lease I couldn't afford. But no one asked because I never made noise. I never had. When I launched my first national campaign for La Mina, the local paper wrote a small blurb. My mother clipped it out and stuck it in the kitchen drawer next to coupons and expired warranty slips. Lauren got a bridal shower with 40 guests and custom champagne flutes. I got a mug that said "Girl Boss" from the clearance bin. Still, I showed up to her engagement party, helped pick centerpieces, drove 3 hours to take her dogs to the vet when she had COVID. Then last Christmas, when I asked if we were doing anything as a family, her text message shattered what little remained of my illusions. "It's kind of just immediate family this year. Super small." I stared at those words for a full minute. I had given her rides, helped her lie to exes, covered for her when she couldn't pay rent. But when it was her turn, the first one to quietly erase me was the sister I thought I had always protected. The clink of silverware pulled me back to the present as dinner began. I cut my chicken with mechanical precision, trying not to think about how many guests glanced toward table 14 and then away, like I was an unfinished sentence in a room full of conclusions. Then the ballroom doors opened, not with the quiet slip of late arrivals, but with the kind of pause that makes a room inhale. A man stood in the entryway, tall, composed, dressed in a dark navy suit that fit like it had been made for him. His eyes scanned the room once, quickly, and then locked on me. Before I could react, he was walking toward my table, straight through clusters of guests and champagne flutes and startled conversations. He didn't pause or glance sideways. He walked up to me, leaned in close and said, "Sorry I'm late, love. Traffic was brutal." Then he kissed my cheek, not rushed or awkward, but the kind of kiss that said, "This is ours." I sat frozen, utterly confused. He smiled at me softly, just the corners of his eyes crinkling. "If you want me to stop, just say so." I didn't say anything. I didn't move either. He turned to the usher who'd been watching us with a fork in midair. "There seems to have been a seating mix-up. I believe I'm with her." "Yes, of course," the usher mumbled, standing abruptly. And suddenly we were being walked toward the main table, toward my family. I heard the gasp before I saw the look on Lauren's face. Her husband leaned toward her, eyebrows raised. My mother's mouth opened, then shut. Russell, because that's the name he whispered as we walked, kept one hand lightly on the small of my back. Just enough to steady, not enough to claim. We were placed between my uncle and cousin. Someone handed us wine. I still hadn't said a word. You looked like you needed a reset, he leaned toward me again, voice low. I'll explain later. Just go with it if you want. I looked at him. The man knew my name. Knew enough about me to walk into a room like he belonged next to me. Knew how to whisper in a way that didn't claim, just offered. Everyone was watching, but for the first time in hours, I didn't feel like disappearing. After the toasts and clinking glasses, I finally turned to him. You going to tell me who you are now? He smiled. You don't remember me, do you? I tilted my head. Should I? Russell reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded place card with my name written on it carefully in my own handwriting. You left this behind 5 years ago. Hotel conference room, Chicago. Green blouse. Marketing leadership seminar. You said, if you're not building something real, you're just adding noise. That stuck. I stared at the card. It was from a breakout session I barely remembered. You were there? I was in the back. I wasn't even in your group, but I heard you speak. He said it like someone describing a song they didn't know they needed until it started playing. You work in marketing? I asked. He shook his head. Finance. But your talk made me switch companies. Left a place where everything was polished but hollow. Started again. Smaller firm, real culture, real people. And today. He glanced toward the table where Lauren was cutting cake, her eyes darting toward us every few minutes. I saw you sitting alone. You looked like you were about to vanish. So I walked in. My heart was ticking louder than the music. Why now? I asked softer. He looked at me, not in the way people look when they want something, but like someone who'd been waiting to say something for a long time and finally found the space. Because I owed you a moment. The kind of moment you once gave without knowing. No strings, just presence. I blinked, looked down at my dress, the same one I almost didn't wear because it felt too strong. He raised his glass slightly. To the green blouse. I didn't smile fully, but I raised my glass back. For the first time all evening, my hands weren't folded in my lap. They were holding something warm. The music swelled again, upbeat now. Guests filed toward the dance floor. Russell leaned in, asking gently, "Want to get some air?" I nodded, and we slipped onto the terrace, one of those wraparound hotel balconies overlooking a city that doesn't care who you are. The wind was crisp, smelling like winter and cigarette breaks. I exhaled for what felt like the first time all night. You okay? He asked. I think so, I said. I think I'm waiting for someone to walk out here and tell me I'm being dramatic. He chuckled. Well, they'd be wrong. Silence settled between us. Not heavy, just real. Then the door creaked open. Lauren. She stepped out with practiced grace, her heels silent on the concrete, her dress shimmering like she was still 12 and being told to smile for the camera. I knew something was off, she said. You're not dating anyone. So who is he? Her tone wasn't angry, just irritated, like I had messed up her seating chart. He's someone who saw me, I said simply. That's not an answer. I didn't respond. She turned to Russell. Do you even know her, or are you just here to get attention? Russell didn't blink. I'm here because she deserved to not be alone in a room full of people pretending she didn't exist. Lauren scoffed. You don't know what she's like. He smiled politely. I know enough. A beat passed. The door opened again. Mom, her eyes flicking from me to Lauren, then to Russell. She didn't say hi or ask why we were outside. She just said, you didn't need to make a scene. This is Lauren's day. That's when I felt it, the same pressure I'd felt my whole life to shrink so Lauren could shine. I had spent years fading into backgrounds, making myself small, hoping that one day my family would turn around and realize I'd been standing there all along. But they never would, not unless I made them see me. I looked at the two women who had spent a lifetime treating me like an afterthought, and something shifted inside me. Not anger, exactly, something clearer. Something final. You know what's funny? I said, my voice steadier than I expected. I spent 20 years making myself small so you could be big. I gave up rooms and proms and weekends. I edited your papers and walked your dogs and kept every secret you ever told me. I showed up to every event with a gift and a smile, even when you both treated me like I was optional. My mother's expression tightened. That's not. It is, I cut her off. Last Christmas, Lauren, you told me it was just immediate family. I am immediate family. Or I was, until you decided I wasn't convenient anymore. Lauren's face flushed. You're twisting things. Table 14, I said quietly. By the emergency exit. Great Aunt June and a teenager with headphones. That's where you put me today at your wedding. Not even a +1 option on the invitation. My mother stepped forward. Now listen. No, I said, and it felt like the first time I'd ever said that word to her. I've been listening my whole life. Listening when you called me low maintenance like it was a compliment. Listening when you put my achievements in a drawer next to expired coupons. Listening when neither of you called for 6 months and then expected me to show up whenever you needed something. I reached into my clutch and pulled out my phone. With a few taps, I opened a gallery of photos. Look, I said, turning the screen toward them. Here's Christmas at the lake house 3 years ago, the one you said was just immediate family, but somehow included Dad's golf buddy and his wife. Here's Lauren's birthday dinner last year, the small gathering that had 20 people, none of whom bothered to tell me it was happening until I saw the posts. Here's Thanksgiving, Mom's birthday, and the family reunion. All immediate family only. All without me. Their faces changed as they scrolled through the evidence, not just of one exclusion, but of a pattern stretching back years. I didn't keep these to hurt you, I said, taking back my phone. I kept them to remind myself that I wasn't crazy. That I wasn't imagining being erased. Lauren's eyes filled with tears. We didn't mean. That's worse, I said softly. You didn't even mean it. I was just so easy to forget. I turned to Russell, who had remained silent, watching. Thank you for walking in, I said. For seeing me when no one else did. His brow creased slightly. You're leaving? I've been leaving, I said. It just took me a while to stand up. I turned to Lauren. Don't worry, you'll still have your spotlight. You always do. Then to Mom, you can stop pretending I surprised you by existing. I walked past them, back inside, past the white linens and gold-rimmed plates and the family name etched into the centerpiece. Back toward table 14, where no one was waiting but the chair was still warm. I collected my small clutch, nodded to Great Aunt June, and walked out of the ballroom without looking back. I was halfway through packing my overnight bag at the hotel when there was a knock. I opened the door slowly. Lauren stood there, shoes in hand, mascara slightly smudged, clutching a bottle of water like a peace offering. I don't want to fight, she said. I just wanted to say something. I stepped aside. She sat on the edge of the window seat, the city lights catching the edge of her shoulder straps. I saw your face tonight, she said quietly. When Mom said it was my day. She looked down at her hands. I used to love being the golden one, being the favorite. Thought it meant I'd earned something. But it turns out it just means everyone assumes you're fine until you shatter. I didn't say anything. She laughed, brittle and short. 3 months ago, I found messages on Kevin's phone. He said they were nothing, but they didn't look like nothing. Mom told me not to overreact. Dad said marriages work. So I smiled again. She looked up at me. Do you know how many times I've smiled when I wanted to disappear? That stopped me because I did know. I knew exactly how that felt. I erased you, she said. Not because I hated you, but because you reminded me there was another way to live, one that didn't require stage makeup. She breathed in. I thought if I kept being the shiny one, maybe no one would ask what was underneath. We sat there for a long moment, not sisters or enemies or background characters, just 2 women raised in the same storybook, realizing neither of them wrote the plot. I didn't need you to say sorry, I finally said. I just needed you to stop pretending I wasn't standing right next to you. Lauren nodded. Then she reached into her purse and handed me something, a printed copy of the wedding menu, gold foil embossed names, her name, Kevin's name, Mom and Dad's names. And a small handwritten note on the bottom corner, you were never invisible. I just made sure you stayed in the dark. I folded the menu carefully. No tears, no hugs, just one shared silence that held more truth than any toast. That night, with the ballroom quiet and most guests drifted upstairs or to the bar, I stood by the hotel's back garden where a few string lights still flickered overhead. My heels dangled from my fingers and the air smelled like rosemary and frost. Russell appeared beside me, 2 mugs of something steaming in hand. Not wine, he said. Just cider. Thought you could use something without consequences. I took it. Warm ceramic. Simple. I'm not sure what tonight was, I said softly. Neither am I, he replied. But I didn't come to be a story. I came because once you looked up during a panel full of noise and said something honest. It stayed with me. I figured maybe I could return the favor. He didn't reach for my hand. Didn't fill the silence. Just sipped his cider and looked out toward the garden. I'm not someone you need to rescue, I said after a minute. He turned, his expression steady. I know. I don't want to rescue you. I want to walk beside you if that's something you'd let me do. It wasn't a line. It wasn't even hopeful. It was an offering. I sat down on the low stone bench. He stayed standing for a beat, then joined me, not close, not far, just next to me. We drank in silence. The kind that doesn't need to be filled. The kind that says, I see you. You don't have to smile. After a while he said, you don't have to decide anything tonight, but if you want a seat beside someone who already respects you, I'll keep showing up. I didn't answer, but I didn't stand up either. The string lights buzzed faintly above, and for the first time in years, I realized stillness doesn't always mean being stuck. Sometimes it means you're safe enough to stop running. 2 weeks later, I received a message from Mom, we are doing a post-wedding brunch at our place. Very casual. Would be nice to have you stop by. No apology, no context, just brunch. I stared at the screen, unmoved. Then I looked at the printed wedding menu Lauren had left with me, still folded, still tucked between pages of my planner. One line in gold foil, Monroe family table reserved. I made my decision then, with clarity that had been years in coming. I didn't reply to my mother's message. Instead, I called her. About brunch, I said when she answered, my voice calm and certain. I'll be there, but I want to be clear about something. I'm not coming to slide back into the shadows. I'm coming because I choose to, not because I'm waiting to be chosen. The silence stretched so long I thought she might have hung up. Okay, she finally said, the word small and unfamiliar in her mouth. And Mom? I'm bringing Russell. I arrived at the house I grew up in, the one that hadn't changed, same floral couch, same glass figurines in the cabinet, same smell of lemon cleaner and thyme. But I had changed. I walked in with Russell beside me, not behind or ahead, just there. They were already gathered around the long dining table, the one I hadn't sat at in over a year. As I walked in, heads turned. Lauren smiled, small but real. Kevin nodded. My father coughed lightly, like the air had shifted. I noticed Lauren and Kevin sitting with a careful distance between them. Their wedding rings still on, but something had changed in how they leaned, not toward each other, but not completely away either. The kind of space that says things aren't fixed, but they're working on it. I caught Lauren's eye briefly, and she gave me a small nod that told me she'd finally stopped pretending in her own marriage too. Mom gestured toward the table. There's room. One chair sat empty. Not at the corner, not at the kids' table, near the middle. I walked over and pulled it out myself. No one jumped to help. No one made a speech, but no one objected either. I sat down. The room didn't erupt in joy. It didn't freeze in shame. It just adjusted, like it remembered there had been a space unbalanced. Lauren passed me the orange juice without a word. I poured my own. No toast, no tears, just the sound of forks against plates. But across the table, Russell caught my eye. He didn't wink. He didn't nod. Just looked at me the same way he did that first night. Like I wasn't missing. Like I wasn't an afterthought. Like I belonged. And maybe I always had. Not because they finally made space, but because I stopped waiting for someone else to pull out the chair. I didn't come back to be chosen. I came back so they'd stop pretending I was never there. If you've ever been made to feel invisible by the people who should see you most clearly, know this: you don't need permission to exist. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't walking away, it's walking back in on your own terms, taking up the space that was always rightfully yours.